Hi everyone, Dr. Ellen here. And it's so nice to be with all of you, even if it is virtually. I know it's been quite a while since I was at your center, but I'm glad to be with all of you today. So I was asked to talk about faith, right? So the weekly topic today is a question of faith. And my talk title is actually the 4 questions of faith. Not just one question, but 4 questions. So what is it? How do we define it? Do we have it? And what does it do? So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. What it is, how we define it, do we have it, and what does it do? Because we talk about faith all the time. But what is faith? How do we define it? So let's talk about those 2 things first. What is faith? Well, one definition from the textbook, the Science of Mind textbook, says faith is a substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Right? That's that I can't see it, but I trust that it's there, right? That's the faith that we have. And it's believing in something that hasn't manifested yet, that invisible principle, faith. So it's also an affirmative mental approach to reality. We have to affirm something that hasn't even happened yet, right? We do that in treatment, but we have to know that it's there, even though we can't see it. Right? That's what the faith is, having that mental attitude, that trust and faith in something that we can't physically see yet. So it's also about having faith that everything is going to work out. Not only is it going to work out, but it's going to work out for the highest and the best of all concerned. Now, we say that faith moves mountains, but equally, faith without works is dead. So faith is not something passive, right? We just have faith and hope and pray everything will work out. No, faith is vibrant and active. It is demonstrating that belief. Right? It's about treating and moving our feet, but it's about having faith in the divine, right? In the divine that is in us, as us, that moves through us. It is just knowing without any doubt, with certainty, that things are going to work out. So in the Science of Mind textbook, on the chapter on faith, Ernest Holmes says, in order to have faith, we must have a conviction that all is well. In order to keep faith, we must allow nothing to enter our thought that will weaken this conviction. Faith is built up from belief, acceptance, and trust. And whenever anything enters our thought which destroys in any degree any one of these attitudes, to that extent, faith is weakened. Oh, so begs me to ask the question, what has weakened your faith? Right? With so much going on in the world right now, a lot of people's faith has been challenged. We are in, I think, month 6 of the COVID-19 pandemic, if we're just counting back from March, but obviously it started before that, but we're in month 6 going on month uncertainty. We have a lot of social unrest that's going on in the world. The political climate, the economic climate, and then, our weather-related concerns. We've just had hurricanes that have hit the Gulf Coast, floods in the East Coast, and in California with the fires. I mean, there are fires of every kind that is raging around us. The wildfires that have been engulfing half our state, the gunfire that is claiming innocent lives, and then there is a firestorm of cancers that are plaguing our society, both literally and figuratively. So what is weakening your faith? Well, I can relate to all of that. In my life, as in many of yours, right, being plagued with the pandemic, back in March when actually it started when we were going to go out to dinner for our twins' 21st birthday, which was March 16th. I think it was a Friday. And I was watching the news, as I always do, about, the pandemic. And all of a sudden, the restaurants are all being told to close, like they could no longer be open. And of course, the restaurant we were going to go celebrate their birthday was closed. So it started then. I go back to then, and little by little, within a week, actually by the end of March, all of my appointments, all of the on-site trainings that I have a training company, I do corporate training. Every one of my appointments was canceled. So first it was just, take this off your schedule for the rest of the week. Take this off your schedule for the rest of March. Then it was take this off for April. And then the calls just started coming, May, and then June. And then I'm looking at a calendar with nothing on it. And I'm like, well, how am I going to pay my bills if I have no income coming in? With the pandemic, both of my kids were now out of work. One of them was furloughed indefinitely, worked at a movie theater. The other one was their store had closed, so they were only keeping a skeleton crew for takeout. My husband's already on disability with colon cancer, and my daughter's boyfriend, who's been living with us, is also on disability because he has been suffering with PTSD. So the fear had overtaken me, this pandemic fear that had literally just weakened my faith. And it just seemed to get worse and worse, especially in the last month or two with all the fires. I have friends in Lake Hughes that have been affected by the fire, and I'm just heartsick every time I turn the news on and I hear another story with violence and out of social injustice. It's just the more news I'd watch, the more fearful I would become, the more fearful I would feel. And my faith was definitely getting tested. And I'm sure I'm not the only one there. So I read this quote on Pinterest, and it says, "Feed your faith and your fears will starve to death." I was like, I've got to do that. Feed your faith and your fears will starve to death. So how do you starve your fears? Or how do I really feed my faith? Well, one thing is to stop feeding those worst case scenario fears. Initially, it was, oh my God, we're going to run out of toilet paper because there was no toilet paper on the stores. There was no milk, there was no bread, there was no basic supply. So of course we were racing with those what if I run out of toilet paper, napkins, paper towels, right? And you race through your mind, what am I gonna do? You're spinning out of control with the what ifs. What if we never can go back to work? What if a vaccine never gets approved? What if, we get sick or somebody gets sick that I care about? What if? So we're spinning in fear, and we have definitely lost our faith. We have forgotten who we are, and we have lost the vision of what faith gives us, right? That belief in the invisible manifestation of something. I know I'm not the only one. Dr. Ken Gordon said, when we secure our vision with a faith as sure as the faith we have that the sun must rise in the morning, then everything required to bring it into experience is attracted to us, and everything else unlike it is dissipated. And that is what faith is all about. I mean, I have absolute faith that the sun is going to come up tomorrow. And even if I can't see it when I wake up in the morning because there's a marine layer, I know that the sun is there. I know that the earth continues to spin, and I know that the sun is coming up. And so in order to really feed that faith, right, I have to have that vision that is that strong. Right? And I can just know that everything is going to work out. And when we do start to see manifestation, when we see proof, right? Ah, yes, I believed and there it manifested. And then I can continue to experience more from that place of faith. And I like to see faith as a bridge from fear to certainty or truth. So if I'm over here on this side of the canyon and I'm in fear, but I want to get over here to truth, I might be really too afraid because I don't see any way across. And yet that's where faith comes in. Right? Faith builds the bridge. It's that invisible bridge. When we take that first step or that leap of faith, right, our security blanket or our, the bridge gets built underneath our feet. There was actually a movie, I can't remember the exact name of the movie, but there was a character who had to step across this abyss to get to the other side. And there's no path, there's no stones, there's no bridge. And they had to take that step in faith into the unknown, into the invisible before it manifested. And as soon as they took the step, lo and behold, there was the pathway right beneath their feet. And that's what happens with faith, right? With faith, we know everything will work out. Right? With faith, we know everything will be fine. And we know with faith that everything will be good. And, I was able to finally move out of my fear, out of that pandemic fear, and stepping into faith, with faith, as faith. Actually, Faith is my middle name. So I always have faith with me, but, I sometimes forget. But little by little, my calendar did start filling up. Right? It was, well, the client decided that they want to do their training as a webinar. Can you do that? Yes, I've been doing webinars for many years. Right? So then another client, I'd like to do a webinar. Absolutely. Can you do Zoom? Absolutely. Can you do Teams? Yes. Can you do GoToWebinar? Yes. Can you do WebEx? Yes. Can you do Adobe Connect? No, but I'll learn. Right? I think right now I know at least 6 or 7 different platforms to do webinars. And, my calendar is now full with engagements. It's actually probably fuller than before the pandemic because now I am not just limited to just within my own neighborhood or my own, within 2-hour driving distance to do a training. I'm doing trainings for clients in Melbourne, Australia. I'm doing clients for people in the UK and India. I'm able to do virtual talks because of technology. So when we look at, what faith has given us, then we can absolutely have that clarity, that certainty that everything is going to work out. Joel Osteen said, I believe if you keep your faith, you keep trust, you keep the right attitude. If you're grateful, you see God open up new doors. And, I definitely experienced that. The doors that have opened when I've stayed in my faith, when I've reminded myself of the silver linings of everything, more and more doors have opened. And we do need to focus on gratitude. Right? When we are in fear or we're in overwhelm or we're worrying about how things are going to work out, right? We're not in faith and we're certainly not in that place of feeling grateful for what's going on. And I think it's really important to use gratitude, not just for when things are good, because it's easy to be grateful when things are working out. But can I be grateful when things are not? Can I find the silver lining in things that are challenging? And for a lot of people during this pandemic, the silver lining has been, well, I don't have to commute anywhere. I get to spend more time with my family. I get to actually connect with people all over the world that I wouldn't have. And a lot of people, including myself, have connected with friends and family that I really haven't seen in many years but it was a good opportunity to reach out over Zoom and have some virtual happy hours or coffee clutches with each other. So these are silver linings that we can focus on. But also the gratitude that, you know, we have a roof over our head, gratitude that we have food in the refrigerator, gratitude that we can breathe, that we have our health. And even if our health is compromised, gratitude for, you know, having another day. There's always something to be grateful for, because we cannot be fearful and grateful at the same time. Well, maybe one exception, which is grateful that things aren't worse. This was kind of the gratitude that I grew up with. Well, it could have been worse, or just be grateful that it wasn't worse, or it could have been worse. Many different versions of that. So, you know, I've learned to move past that, but if that's all you can muster, that's okay. Gratitude is a good energy to be in, even if you're just grateful that things aren't worse. So, you know, when we look at that, you know, from that perspective, we start to see more and more things that we are grateful for. And whenever I do a training, I've done so many trainings today on managing our stress and anxiety during COVID-19. I always ask my participants, my audience, you know, what are the silver linings that you are experiencing? You know, let's flip the coin over from fear to faith, to gratitude. So what can I be grateful for? And whenever I ask that question, I just get a flood of responses. And it's always family. It's always having more time to be with the people I care about. Or even if I can't physically be with them, you know, I'm grateful for the technology, because this didn't exist years ago. Wouldn't have been able to have a Zoom call or a FaceTime with someone. So I'm grateful for that, at least. I'm grateful that I've learned some new recipes or focused on a hobby that I always wanted to try. I mean, I finally started gardening, even if it's just container gardening because I live in an apartment, but I'm growing my tomatoes for the very first time. Like, I'm so super excited when I walk outside and I see little budding, you know, tomatoes on the vine. So there's so much that we can focus on. There's so much good in the world. So we want to move away from the fear and anxiety. Anthony Robbins said, when you are grateful, fear disappears and abundance appears. I'm going to say that again. When you are grateful, fear disappears and abundance appears. So if you are still holding on to fear about your finances, release that fear. Flip over to faith and be grateful for the abundance that you do have. Right? Money is God in action, and we are always in the divine flow. Right? And I have learned over the years that money doesn't come from a job. Money can come from anywhere. Right? Money is God in action, and we are always in divine flow. What about your health? Right? If you are still fearful about getting sick, again, flip that over into faith. Release the fear. Put your faith in the premise of perfect God, perfect man, perfect being. Now we know that faith without works is dead. I already talked about that. So we need to treat and move our feet. That's another way of saying that. So when we are having a hard time keeping the faith, that's the absolute time to move into treatment. So what is treatment? We do that too all the time. We treat, but what is treatment exactly? So the Science of Mind textbook says, a treatment is a statement in the law embodying the concrete idea of our desires and accompanied by an unqualified faith that the law works for us as we work with it. So the law does work for us. It works through us and as us. And when we put our faith in divine right outcome, it works out perfectly. So treat and then move your feet into action. And then that faith in the invisible manifestation will work out. And speaking of work, tomorrow's Labor Day, as all of you know, but this is definitely going to be a different Labor Day than in years past. But it was originally started back in 1882. That's when it was created to support the labor unions. And it was just an annual tribute to the contributions of the workers, that have made the strength, prosperity, and well-being of our country. And it was originally celebrated with a parade to exhibit to the public the strength and esprit de corps of the trade and labor organizations of the community. And then it was followed by a festival for recreation and amusement of the workers and their families. And it was the unions and the laborers that took that Monday off, and that was the very first time, well over 100 years ago, because they'd been working 80 plus hours. And I know a lot of people today are probably back up there because we're working from home and we haven't quite put those boundaries on our workday. So we need to do that, number one. But back in the day, working 80 hours a week, there was no time for family, right? Because they weren't working from home. They were out in the fields or out in the mines or out constructing. So no time for family, no time for friends, and no time to shop. So the merchants were not able to sell their wares, and people that needed supplies weren't able to go shopping. They had no time. So that was one of the main reasons why Labor Day was actually founded. And it's one of the reasons why, we continue to celebrate Labor Day with shopping and barbecuing and doing those kinds of things. And for a lot of people, Labor Day has always meant the end of the summer. But I think today, given our climate, I think we want to honor Labor Day, not with all the humanistic, materialistic ways that we have in the past, trying to get the best deal on a car or a mattress or whatever the gadget is, that you've been wanting. We really should focus on the original spirit of this holiday. Let's have a spiritual celebration of what the original intent of the holiday was all about: recreation and amusement. So let's amuse ourselves with stories of goodwill. And there are so many stories out there. Right? We want to recreate a different perspective about this pandemic during all these challenging times. So I went online and I wanted to find some really goodwill stories because, they are on the news, but there's only one or two when they wait till the very end of the news broadcast to kind of give you a 15-second story. And there's way more goodwill stories than there are negative stories. So I found the People magazine online edition, and there was a story of at least 20 different people that have done some good things, goodwill stories, and they really did just open my heart and restore my faith in humanity. So let me share some of them with you. So one that I read was a math teacher whose student had texted him and he couldn't figure out the homework. He was not able to do the math homework. It was really struggling. And so instead of trying to resolve the problem or help the student, via Zoom, he actually went to the student's home, brought a whiteboard or a flip chart, and helped the student resolve their, go through the math problem right there at their house, right on the lawn through the glass. I thought that was a beautiful story. Another story was a COVID patient who writes a thank you note on the window of his hospital room to his healthcare workers. Here's my favorite sign story. A 93-year-old woman puts a sign in her window that says she's out of beer. And of course, her neighbors come to the rescue, and I think she has now enough beer to last through, the end of this pandemic and beyond. Then there was the story about a college student who had created a mask for the hard to hearing or the deaf that was clear so they could read lips. I thought that was beautiful. And then there's so many stories of grassroots efforts to, feed the healthcare workers or those on the front line, or stay at home, people that can't get out, seniors or people whose health is compromised and they don't want to go out. And then in the beginning of the pandemic, we heard about all those stories too of people applauding healthcare workers from their balconies or singing from their balconies. Just so many goodwill stories to renew your faith, to strengthen your conviction of good and the goodwill that still exists today. Ernest Holmes said, "I live in the faith that there is a presence and power greater than I am that nurtures and supports me in ways I could not even imagine." I live in the faith that there is a presence and power greater than I am that nurtures and supports me in ways that I could not imagine. And there is a presence and power, right? We call it God, we call it universe, we call it spirit, we call it one mind. And when you put your faith in divine presence that is in all of us, we can truly move mountains. So, back to the question of faith. The textbook also says, if one will have faith in himself, faith in his fellow man, in the universe, and in God, that faith will light the place in which he finds himself. And by the light of this faith, he will be able to see that all is good. And the light shed by his faith will light the way for others. I just love that passage. So let us just continue to shine our light, right? Shine a light of love and compassion and peace and understanding and patience and truth and prosperity, right? Let's continue to shine a light on all of us. Let's know that this is our truth. And let's also know that whenever we lose our faith, should we lose our faith, that it's just a treatment away. Building the bridge from fear to truth, having faith. So I want to close today with a prayer, and it is this. Always pray to have eyes that see the best, a heart that forgives the worst, a mind that forgets the bad, and a soul that never loses faith. Namaste. Thank you, everyone. Have a beautiful, blessed rest of your day. Bye.